Abraham is called the father of faith, and we are called to walk in the steps of the faith of Abraham. How did Abraham respond to the call of God? How did he journey into the promise? And what happened after that? These are the lessons we learn as we take a look at the life of Abraham and his walk with God.
Greetings and thank you for tuning in to Living Strong today. As always, it's a joy and delight to come your way and bring the Word of God to you. We want to spend some time in the next few episodes just talking about the life of Abraham and how he journeyed with God to see God's purpose and God's promise for his life fulfilled. On the episode today, we just begin with an introduction to Abraham's life. And we'll talk about answering the call and try to learn some lessons ourselves on how God calls us and how He invites us to step in to journey with Him into His calling, into His promise. When we look at Abraham's life, in the 12th chapter of the book of Genesis, we read a little bit about his background and how Abraham, his wife Sarah, they actually grew up in a place called the Ur of the Chaldees, a place that was given to idolatry. They were born among and they lived among a people who did not know God, who had no understanding about God. In fact, they were moon worshippers, people who worshipped the moon god, and that entire area was known to make these kinds of idols and pottery and other things that expressed their worship of the moon god. And Abraham and his family were in that region where they were raised and they were growing up. The other thing we notice about Abraham's life is that once he was married to Sarai, the Bible tells us that Sarai was barren. In Genesis 11 and verse 30, it says that Sarai was barren and she had no child. So here was a predicament in their family life where they did not have the possibility of having children, and so Abraham and Sarai probably reconciled to the fact that they would be childless for the rest of their lives. Now, in a situation like this, God does the most unexpected thing. Now think about Almighty God. He has a plan in His heart. He has something that He wants to do here on earth. He wants to raise up a people through whom He could release the Messiah and through whom He could bring salvation to the peoples across the globe, to the nations of this world. And what does God do? He does the most unexpected thing. He goes to this family living in and among a people given to idolatry. This little household that has accepted the fact that they would go childless. And to such a family, He gives the call saying, "Come, I want to take you to a land and I want to make a great nation out of you." This is something that is totally unexpected. Why would God go to a people who are given to idolatry, worshipping the moon god? Why would God pick a household that actually has no children and then tell them that I'm going to make you a great nation and through you I'm going to bless the nations of this world? This is the very call that we read which God gave to Abraham in Genesis chapter 12 verses 1 through 4, where it says that God comes to Abraham. He tells him, "Get out of your country, from your family, from your father's house, to a land that I will show you. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you. I will curse him who curses you. And in you all the nations of families of the earth will be blessed." So Abraham departed as the Lord had spoken to him, and Lot, his nephew, went with him. And Abraham was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. So just look at the whole situation into which God steps and releases His call. What can we understand about the call of God and the way God works? Well, obviously, when God wants something done on earth, He chooses a man. But what kind of a man does God choose? Or what kind of a person does God choose? Very often, in carrying out His purposes on earth, God chooses the most unlikely of people to do something that He has in His heart. He chose Abraham and Sarai, who were childless, very unlikely people through whom a great nation could come forth. But He still chose them. And as you look at your life, and as I look at my own life, as we see what God is doing in the world today, we begin to understand the nature of God's working. That God steps into the most unlikely of situations, and He chooses the most unlikely of people to release something that He wants done on the earth. And to them He gives a call. He puts before them a dream or a vision, saying, this is what I'm calling you into. So God placed this call before Abraham. He said, Abraham, I want you to get up, leave your country, go to a land that I will show you. And here's my promise to you. I'm going to bless you. I'm going to make you a great nation. And through you and through your descendants, I'm going to bless the nations of this world. Now, there is no indication in the Bible that prior to that Abraham was accustomed to hearing from God. So this could possibly be the very first time that Abram is actually hearing the voice of God, actually having some sort of an experience with God, where God is giving him a call, where God is presenting to him a dream. You know, many times God steps into our lives not because we've been so spiritual or because we are very well positioned to do what God's calling us to do. He speaks to us in spite of the fact that we have no history of hearing from God or no history of prior encounters and experiences with God. That's what God did to Abraham. There's another interesting thing that we could observe in this whole process of God presenting His call and a man responding to the call. Abraham and Sarai had no children. They were childless. And at that moment in Genesis 12, when God is actually presenting to Abraham that call, Abraham is 75 years old, which means it's been a long time that they've been without any child. And in such a situation, God steps in and says, I'm calling you because I want to make you into a great nation. This teaches us something about the nature of God's calling. You know, that God doesn't necessarily evaluate our circumstances and look at the probability of us being successful in fulfilling that call. He doesn't necessarily weigh all the natural possibilities of making His promise happen. He doesn't take all those things into account. He calls us because He chooses to call us. He calls us in spite of our natural circumstances and our natural abilities and what we carry in ourselves. The fact that God stepped in to a childless couple and said to them, I want to make you a great nation, tells us that God steps into our lives and presents His call, His dream, His vision, independent of what we bring to the table. The success of that call being fulfilled is not dependent on what we bring to the table or on our skills and abilities, but it depends entirely on God's side, on what God puts into our lives to see that promise fulfilled. All He's looking then is for our response to that call, for our availability towards that call, for our obedience and our commitment to that call. And that is exactly what we see in Abraham's life. Abraham's response to the call. That's the big lesson for us to learn. That when God presented this call, Abraham did not back out. He responded in a very positive way. He stepped out to whatever God called him to do. Like we read in Genesis 12, the Bible tells us that Abraham departed as the Lord had spoken to him. He heard the voice of God. He heard the promise of God. He heard the call of God. And even though this was the first time that he was encountering such a call, even though he had no prior experience, no previous encounters as far as the records indicate, that none of that, no history behind it, yet he had the courage, he had the faith to step out and say yes to the call of God. That's the key for us to respond in a positive way to God's call, to God's dream, to our lives. The book of Hebrews addresses this or presents this in this way in Hebrews chapter 11, verses 8 through 10. It says, "By faith Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to the place which he would receive as an inheritance, as he went out, not knowing where he was going." So Abraham responded in faith. He obeyed the call, and he went out even when he didn't know necessarily where he was going. He just knew that God said, "I'm going to take you to a land that I'm going to give to you as your inheritance, as your possession, to you and your descendants. And I'm going to make you a great nation. I'm going to bless you. I'm going to make you a blessing." And he responded. He went out in faith. And he went out not knowing necessarily where he was going. You know, many of us, when we respond to the call of God, we face a lot of questions. People ask us questions. So what about this? And what about that? What will happen to this? And what will happen to that? And you know, we don't necessarily have the answers. We don't know the answers to questions that address issues that may happen 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now. We don't have those answers. But what God is looking for is that kind of faith that will lead us into obedience. By faith, Abraham obeyed. His faith moved him to a place of obedience to the call of God, and he went out. He went out even when he didn't necessarily know where exactly he was going. So can you imagine when his wife asked him, "Where are we going?" When his servants asked him, "Master, where are we going?" When his nephew asked him, "Where are we going?" He didn't have the answer, but all he had was faith and obedience in his heart. So that's how we must respond to the call of God. That's how we must answer the call of God. It's by faith and obedience. And God leads us in that journey a step at a time. He doesn't necessarily give us all the details of how He is going to take us into the call. He presents the promise. It could be something that's burning in your heart. It could be a dream that captures your imagination most of the time. It's a dream that's burning inside you. It's something that stirs up inside you. And that's God presenting His call. That's God presenting His dream. It's God wanting to release something on the earth through you. And He's looking for us to respond by faith and obedience. So, what do we learn about Abraham and how he answered the call of God? God comes into our life situations and He presents His call to us regardless of where we are, regardless of our place, regardless of our capabilities, regardless of our skills and all of that. And He invites us to respond to Him with faith and obedience. So I want to challenge you. As God speaks to you about various things He wants you to do here on earth, about dreams that He has birthed in your heart, about visions that He's placed in your heart, would you be like Abraham and obey the call of God and go out even when you don't have all the answers to these questions, to the questions that might press in on your mind? Would you step out by faith and obey the call of God? That's the first lesson we can learn from Abraham as he journeys and answers the call of God on his life.